In this lab, you're going to be testing a bunch of powders to find out which suspect stole the cake that the school had earned. Each suspect was found with some white powder on them. So you are going to have 4 known white powders. On your tray, you'll have these little weigh boats that are labeled. So if there's nothing in the weigh boats, bring it up to the front and you can get what you need. You're also going to have a beaker labeled water, which you can just get from the sink, and a beaker labeled vinegar. If there's nothing in that, please come up to the front. The last thing you will need is these iodine tinctures. We only have 3 because that's how many were there when I went. So you're going to have to share with one of the tables next to you. Lastly, there will be an unknown. This is the powder that was found on the suspect. So we're going to save that for later. So the first thing you're going to do is test your known powders with all of these substances. So you're going to take your known powders and put 1 of each in 3 wells. So I'm going to start with sugar, and I'm going to put sugar 3 times. And then I'll go to cornstarch 3 times, and so on. So I'm going to start with sugar, and you don't need to put a lot. These are very small wells. So just about that is good. And I'm going to put it in all 3 of these. And then to keep myself organized, I'm going to keep the knowns in order here so that when I line up my well plate, I know that sugar was first because it's first here. Next, actually, I'll do baking powder. And I'm going to put that in all 3 of them. And that can go right here so I know what the second one is. Baking soda. And cornstarch. So then what you're going to do is test all of these with our 3 liquids. So I'm going to start with water, take my pipette, start with water, and I'm going to put some water in all of the top ones. So I'm testing water with sugar, baking powder, baking soda, cornstarch. And then you can make a note on your table what happened with water for all 4 of those. You should observe write down what you see happening, and then put a P for a physical change or a C for a chemical change based on those 5 indicators. And I'm just kind of putting a bunch in there. It really doesn't need to be a certain amount, but I'm kind of filling up the well plates. So then you can write things like if you see bubbles, that's formation of a gas. If you see that they mix together, then you could write that. If you see that they don't and they stay apart, then you can write that. Okay, then what I'm going to do is rinse out my pipette. I'm just using water and put it in the sink. Once you've written your observations, again, write P for physical or C for chemical, and then move on to vinegar. And make a note of everything you see. Write P for physical, C for chemical, and rinse out your pipette. So the last thing you're going to do is iodine. Now, one thing that's true about the iodine is that it's very dark, so it might be harder to see if you do fill up the well. So you might want to use less and then kind of stir it a little bit with the pipette to see if there's any left in there. And I'm doing this to see if they mix together and dissolved. So make any observations that you see. And then I'm going to go ahead and rinse out my iodine. from my pipette. Okay, so then I have my known tests. I'm going to, once I'm done making all my observations, rinse this out. And be very careful not to spill the iodine because it will stain your clothes and your hands. Dry it off because you don't want to have water in the wells or it will start reacting before you're ready if it does in fact react with water. I'm also going to rinse out this water beaker because all my other substances were in there since I was using it to rinse. So once you've done that, you're going to take your unknown substance and put it in 3 wells. You're going to put water in the top one. Vinegar in the middle one. And iodine in the third one. Record your observations. And then you can compare those to your known substances. The unknown is one of the 4 knowns. So you compare that to figure out which one of the 4 was on the suspect, and then take a look at the slide in the front of the room with the suspects listed with their powders, and you will figure out who was the suspect that stole the cake. Write your CER explaining that. When you are done, please rinse out your pipette. You don't need to throw it away. The other classes can use the same one, but just rinse it out. Dump out your water. Dump out everything in your well plate. Rinse that. And dry it off for the next class. Just the wells. You don't need to worry about the rest of it. And then you can put all of these back on the tray. Put your vinegar beaker back on the tray. Put your scopula back on the tray and put the tray back in the corner of the room.